As a parent, it can be so tempting to get lost in the season of parenting I'm in right now. When I had little babies, it felt like choosing how to feed them or manage their sleep schedules was the biggest decision. And the same thing happened when they grew older and it was time to decide what kind of schooling to pursue. In every season, it's so easy to get zoned in and imagine that these decisions are either going to guarantee our kids turn out great or totally ruin them. So, Dr. Kim, I love getting to hear about your relationships with your kids and grandkids and how you're enjoying them as they grow. So, I'd love to hear some of your wisdom on this topic.
Well, as far as it's fun. It was fun raising kids. I think Nancy and I totally enjoyed it, that part of our life, and grandkids are a lot of fun. And so my goal with, and I think we're going to talk about this in a later episode, was always with my kids that they would be adult friends
Mm.
because I wanted them to want to come back home and want to be around us. And so, and we did that somehow. Not that we did anything perfect. And then we're blessed that our grandkids love to be around us. So we spoil them a lot more than we did our kids.
Naturally.
Probably.
Right.
So as far as some pitfalls, I mean, I think for us, where we would get in trouble was when we did not trust God. We
Oh.
did not trust that God had a plan to look at what does God want for this child, to try to keep our own individual wants and desires. I mean, yes, he gives us wisdom as parents, and he tells us to train our kids to grow the way they need to grow. But I think he also has a plan. And I think when we seek him, he helps us in making those decisions. And I think when we learned that was probably in some situations where one of us would say, be going on about something, we can decide what to do. And our kids will get kids, but it's just things you have to face. And especially in the culture we live in, because every other kid in the world's doing it. Why can't I do it? Those kind of things. And so I think we would say, let's pray. And it would be so clear after that God would give us an answer. And I think it's because he wants, that's something you're praying, and it's something that he wants. He wants us to be good parents. He wants us to raise our kids in who he created them to be. And so I think anytime we invite him into that space, then he comes.
Oh, that's
and he
so
shows
good.
up. And so I think for us is just always remembering to trust God with that. And God loves your kids and your grandkids more than you do, which is when you really think about that, it's like, really? That's amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be my first one.
Oh, that's really good. Okay, so I'll share one of mine. I'll just go on the one that's most similar to this because it just goes right along with it, but not letting the children be who God made them to be. And this is something that, so as a mom, and I grew up with sisters, and I have a daughter, and I have 3 sons. And so growing up with a house with this many boys is just foreign, to me. And so I struggled with looking at these boys and thinking something is wrong with them. They are broken. They are wild. It's not bad wild. They just, every stick is a gun, and every
Yes.
game is a combat game, and everything ends in wrestling. And I just would look at Brian and go, what's wrong with him? And he would go, what do you mean? They're fine.
Yeah, nothing.
So I struggled for a long time to try to make them act more like I acted as a little girl, because I thought that was what was right, because that was just what was my normal.
Yeah.
And so accepting that I don't have to let them be crazy. I don't have to let them have bad behavior, but I can let them be the young boys that God made them to be. And even my daughter is just such a fun personality and loves to, talk and all these things, and very smart. And for a long time I thought, I think you talk too much. And I realized that's actually one of her gifts that God gave her. And so I've had to back off, stop trying to make them different, and just enjoy who God made them to be.
It's so good because it goes back to what we talk about, really about trying to change your spouse, accepting those differences. And I think it is. And I think I hear that from about every mother who didn't grow up with a brother, and then they have a boy or 2 boys, and boys are just so different than little girls. I mean, they are climbing, exploring, all those kind of things. There's just a difference there. And I think for you, it's like, what's wrong with those guys,
Yeah.
what's wrong with, and nothing. It's just the way
Yeah.
they are. And
Nothing.
so I think just accepting those differences in our kids,
Yes.
and knowing that I had a family one time and they had 3 daughters. They thought they were the parents of the year with the first 2 daughters. Their daughter had a different personality. And, they thought something was obviously wrong with the daughter because their formula wasn't working with her. And
Oh,
so it took
right.
some work to help them see, this girl needs to be parented a little bit different than your others did. A lot of things you do are great, but there's some things you got to do different with her just because she's got more of a questioning mind, and she's got a little bit of a rebellious spirit, and she's gonna not take things just because you said it like the others did. And so you just got to learn how to do mold what God has given you, and He helps you to work with in your children, not
Yeah,
to put
that's
them in
good.
your box, but to keep them in God's box.
Yeah, and like you said, his plan for them is a lot better, than ours could be. So that's
Yes, absolutely,
very encouraging.
absolutely.
So what's your second thing?
Second would be setting your marriage on the back burner.
Mm.
I think sometimes couples do that, and I get it. Sometimes they don't even consciously do it. They're just overwhelmed with all these kids
Mhm.
running around. But I think knowing that you continue to need to be intentional while your kids are
Mhm.
growing up, that you are modeling marriage for them too. And so if they
Mhm.
don't see you guys acting as married couples, and I think that's even showing affection. I mean, that's their kids are going to go gross or try to step between you when you're kissing in the kitchen, but that's okay.
Yeah.
They need to know that. They need to know that date nights are important for mom and dad, and that's a night that's important to them. So they'll do that with their kids. And so I think you can't connect during those raising your kids years if you put your marriage on the back burner and you don't take
Mm.
advantage of the opportunities to do that, because you'll be one of those couples that the last kid leaves and you think, okay, I'm not sure I even know this person anymore, and if I do I want to stay with them, instead of nurturing a relationship, your marriage, all
Mhm.
through those growing up years, enjoying things together, planning for your kids together, doing things together in that situation, and continue to keep the focus on your marriage. So don't set your marriage on the back burner. I think a lot of times people do that, and you can justify it in some ways, but in the big picture, I don't think it works.
Yeah. Yeah. That one, that made my list as well. Neglecting your marriage, I think, is one. It's just, I think, like you said, it's sometimes just by default because you're busy and you're distracted and you're tired. It doesn't feel like there's any energy left to give.
Yeah.
But and I've seen this really bear out like through seasons of parenting and marriage that we've been through, because our kids are in very busy season, and the less intentional time we put into our marriage, our kids actually feel that and kind of feed on that. It doesn't feel as secure to them. You can tell,
Yeah.
and they respond to that, not really realizing it. But things haven't changed for us, but we just haven't been as intentional to make sure we have quality time together. And that's something that's been so fun to see how when we are more intentional about that and make sure we keep checking in, keep having date night, they respond to that, and they're appreciative even without knowing to say that they're appreciative.
No, I think I think it is. That's a great point. It gives them security. It gives them
Mhm.
security to know that mom and dad are together, because they'll have parents that are divorced. And if you're a divorced parent listening to this,
Yeah.
obviously, um, you work with what you have with your child now, and you be the
Yeah.
best parent you can, and you pray that your ex will be the best parent they can be too.
Mhm.
But if you're still married, there's a lot of security that comes to kids from knowing that their parents are together. It provides them security.
Yeah. And I love that it's everything God designed works well together.
Yeah,
What's good for the spouses is good for the marriage, is also good for the
absolutely.
kids.
Exactly. That's
That's
good.
good. Well, what's your next?
Next one is trying to be the perfect parent. You can't
Ooh.
protect them from everything. You can't have
Mm.
these narrow parameters. So I think just realizing, one, you are going to make mistakes as a parent. God's bigger than your mistakes. I mean, certainly you don't want, you don't want to introduce your kids to drugs and alcohol at 5 years old. That
Right.
is not that's not being a good parent. But I mean, you want to be do the best you can with God's help, and knowing that there's something about letting them make mistakes
Mm.
within certain parameters, that they need to know that learn to take responsibility. that they need the opportunity to make choices that are good. One of the things that we did with our kids when they started driving was, you better not ever drive if you've been drinking or if you've been around someone that has been drinking. And if you ever need a ride, you call us and we'll pick you up, no questions asked. And so I think Julie was a sophomore and she called one night and said, Dad, I need you to pick me up. Okay. So it was about 12 o'clock and picked her up. She and the guy she was dating at that time had been at a party and she just didn't think that was the place she needed to be. And so came home and didn't say that. The next morning she wouldn't talk about it. And if she hadn't, that was okay. Our rule was we'd rather you be safe. Well, found out, the guy she was with had been drinking. She didn't know it was going to be that kind of party. So she tried to hang in there for a while and thought, I can't do that. This is not where I need to be. If police come to this place, I do not need to be here. And so she made a good decision. So I think giving them choices within certain parameters is really good, and letting them, it's okay if they, if they fail a test because you weren't on them to study the whole time. And then they realize next time, okay, I've got to learn this. Because when you go to college, most of us as parents don't move in the dorm with our kids. so we wanted to give our kids opportunities before they left the house. So the last senior year was no curfew if things had gone well up to that point, because the next year there was going to be no curfew. And so we wanted them to learn how to regulate that. And they both did a pretty good job. In fact, my son, who always would put, I think his curfew before that was 12:30 or something like that. He would get in at 12:29, something like that. When he didn't have a curfew, some nights he'd be at 10, some nights he'd choose not to go out. I don't know that he ever was out till 12:30 unless it was a prom or some special thing where everybody was out. So you just want to give them some opportunities, and I think not be afraid to let them fail in some areas and learn from that, because that's part of growing up. And if they have those experiences while they're at home, you're there to process through that with them. And if you don't ever give them those opportunities, then they go off to college and then they don't have you with them there.
Yeah, no, I hope not to hear of anyone who's moved in the dorm with their kid.
Right.
Sounds awkward and it sounds really uncomfortable for the parent, but no, that's a great point. And I think too, as a parent, I'm however many years behind where you guys are. And I think it's better to hear that sooner than later, because there are little ways that we can let them make those decisions and practice. Like if you didn't practice your piano and your piano teacher isn't happy about that, there are certain things they're going to need to start owning sooner than later.
Exactly. It's not, well, mom didn't tell me to practice. It's got to
Right.
be, no, you're the one who's supposed to do the practice. No, that's good. And I think it is looking for those opportunities that you have right now. It doesn't have to wait till they're teenagers or whatever. There's little choices that they make.
Yeah.
They make now.
Well, and the thing I'm realizing with, as a parent with younger kids, you think, oh, it's going to be easier. It's going to get easier. And then your child gets older and older and you start to think, well, it's easier because we sleep through the night, but their choices now have really big consequences sometimes. And so that's not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and they, obviously when they're little, we do protect them some, but it comes to a point when we can't protect them from everything goes on in this world, and it's a crazy mixed up world. And so helping them learn how to navigate that and give them those opportunities are really good.
Yes. It's not easy, but it is good.
Yes.
So the next one I had was not applying the gospel to parenting. So expecting that we would not. So you said trying to be basically the perfect parent. I'm saying expecting your kid to be perfect. We'll need Jesus. They need Jesus. We're all going to mess up. And we need to be aware that that's exactly why we have the gospel and why it's such good news, is because we need it. So I think take the pressure off yourself, but also the kid. They're going to mess up. Even if they already knew the rule, they're going to forget. And that's a great opportunity to get a foot in the door to remind them of why that means the gospel is even better when you need it.
Absolutely. And I think the more, our kids knew that we prayed for them. They knew that we prayed over them. They knew that we prayed with them. And so I think all of that helps create that culture of our go-to is God. Yeah, I got to ask Dad if I can have the car Saturday night, but the real go-to is God, and that's where we want them to go, and that God's never going to tell our kids something that he doesn't confirm with us, and he's never going to do anything in us that doesn't, isn't the best for the kids. And so when you get that atmosphere, and there's prayer that's going into decisions and life situations and things like that, it makes such a difference. And that's the kind of the culture that we wanted our kids to have. And we weren't perfect at it. I mean, we had some great ideas and we accomplished a lot of them, but a lot of them we fell short of. But that didn't make us wish we hadn't had those goals, because I think they were good goals. Some were just easier to accomplish than others.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I think it's good too to, our kids don't need us to be on a pedestal. They don't need to think that we're out of the reach of Jesus. We, I think, have a beautiful opportunity to model to them that we're all sinners and that we all just depend on his grace, and they're not depending on our grace. We're also receiving that from Jesus. So
I agree. And I think admitting to your kids when you're wrong, they know when you're wrong. It's like, so we don't admit it just so, no. Right. I think there's so much to be said for, hey, I really believe that. I did not want to lose my temper. I did. I ask your forgiveness. I mean, if when they hear that from us, we're modeling that for them. Yeah. And so I think we, put ourselves on a pedestal, sooner you come off that, the better, I think.
Certainly. And I'll say from experience, it gets easier after a while. The more you apologize to your kids, the easier it is.
Yeah. And they know we screw up. I think
they know.
It's like, I've had kids that say, well, Dad does this, and this, but he never says he's wrong. And it's like, they know that, and it would be so much more if you'd say, hey, I blew it. Will you forgive me? I mean, as far as teaching them and moving those relationships forward, because it's hard to live with someone who thinks they're perfect or acts like they're perfect.
Sure. Not very fun.
No.
So what do you have next on your list, Dr. Kim?
I put loving yourself. The healthier you are, the healthier spouse and parent you're going to be. And so knowing that that's okay, because I think sometimes as parents, we give and give and give. And I get that. And I think that's, we wanted to embrace those years knowing they wouldn't last forever. But I think we realized that, we had to take care of ourselves too. And spiritually, our marriage, health-wise, it's always worked out. We figured ways so we could both go to the gym consistently, eating healthy and mental health. And so the healthier we are, I think we're better parents, better spouses, all those kind of things. And so it's okay to love yourself. Bible says, love your neighbors yourself. So that means, okay, you got to take care of yourself if you're going to love your neighbor. And your kids are better than your neighbors. So love yourself and take care of yourself. And I think it equips you then, puts you in a position to be a better parent.
Yeah, absolutely. That one's on my list too. Not surprising. Not taking care of yourself doesn't make you very well able to take care of other people. So, I think about that when my kids were really little, and I would feel like, I was home with the kids. I had 3 under 3 at one point, and I would just think, I'm supposed to be doing something all the time. I wouldn't want somebody to catch me sitting down and, being unproductive. But no, you're, a frazzled and frayed parent is not the best parent. And so there are times I would sit on the couch, put my feet up, read a book, whatever. And that is actually the best use of time sometimes, is to rest and regroup and to put some kind of investment in being your own self, not just your parent identity.
Yeah. And I think it's a good way for couples to help each other is to, there are times I saw Nancy where she just looked frazzled because she did a lot. She did a lot with her kids and her friends and all that kind of stuff. And so we'll see that and just say, just write, hey, how frazzled are you on a 1 to 10? I'm a 10. Okay, you're 10. So what can I do to help you? I mean, it's a way to grow your marriage in the midst of that time too. Be aware of what's going on with your kids. Maybe you as the wife got to stay on the weekend and dad took the kids camping by himself all weekend, and they come back Sunday night and he's like chased kids and gotten fish hooks out of people's fingers and all this kind of stuff. So knowing then come in and you say, hey, once you go take a shower and go to bed, I'll get the kids to bed tonight. Just when you're aware of it for each other, not that you're starting a precedent, but that you think, I want to help my spouse to be as healthy as possible. If I come in and do something for them, then lets that happen.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. So it's worth it to take care of yourself
Absolutely.
officially.
Even though it's hard, even though
Yeah.
sometimes you just feel like I'm being selfish, like you're saying, but you're not. It's
Mhm.
go back to Jesus, things we've talked about, his
Yeah.
going self away to take care of himself. It's okay.
Yeah. And maybe reevaluate your schedule as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Calendar. So do you have anything else? Any more pitfalls?
My last one would probably be not celebrating each child's gifts. And I
Mm.
think sometimes, depending on where you live, what kind of culture you're in, some gifts are valued higher than others.
Mhm.
Where we live, sports are a big deal. Sports are a big deal in a lot of places. But
Mhm.
so I had a family one time, and they were twins. And one son was quarterback on the football team, great little athlete, ended up playing some small college ball after high school. The other was just phenomenal at music and
Mm.
went on with a music scholarship to a university that had a great music program. And I didn't get to follow him after that, but I'm sure he was successful. That dad really had trouble, and I worked with the dad because it was easy for him to praise the quarterback because his dad
Mm.
played football. He identified with that. He had no idea that there were black and white things on a piano
Mm.
keys.
Mhm.
I mean, seriously, he had never been close to piano.
Mhm.
And so I think learning for him to celebrate and how to celebrate that other son's gifts and abilities the same way he did the son that was easier to with football was really important. And so I think as parents, we've got to be able to, again, it goes back to not trying to change our kids into
Mm.
something. What are the gifts God's given them? How do we help them develop that? How do we encourage that? How do you let this kid take piano lessons 3 days a week and not go, golly, I can't believe we have to pay for this. We have to pay anything for football for Johnny to go.
Right,
And just
right.
things like just no, celebrate those things and encourage the kids in them, and celebrate those gifts and knowing that each one is valuable and God created them for a reason. And so I think that I see it hard sometimes. I don't know if it's hard for wives as it is for husbands. I seem to see more guys struggle with it because I think as guys not being as relational, sometimes we're trying to figure out how do we relate to our kids, and so we kind of
Mhm.
go with what we're comfortable with. And so if that works, great. If not, great. I mean, I remember with Julie, I had to learn to get in the floor with strawberry shortcake dollhouse and play
Mhm.
dolls,
Yeah.
for an hour because that was what she wanted to do at that time. And she liked to
Yeah.
play make believe and she liked to do those kind of things. And so, you just kind of celebrate each one of them.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. And there's a learning curve, I think. That's, you gotta keep growing.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's good. I know I can't even tell you countless lessons on how to throw a football correctly because that's my poor boys are like, "Mom, you're just not doing this right."
It's just not.
Like, I'm not gonna tell them I really don't care if I'm doing it right. I'll just
Yeah.
say, "Hey, teach me how to do it."
Yeah. Yeah. So you didn't play football growing up?
Yes, shockingly, no.
No.
I'm still pretty terrible throwing a ball across the yard, but hey, I'll give it a shot sometimes.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think when you take time to do that, you begin to see things in each one of your child that sometimes we miss, and
Yes, yeah.
and each child is so special and so gifted, and God's got a plan for them, and so I didn't want to miss that either.
Yeah.
Having a boy and girl were different. We didn't have the competition. They played
Mhm.
different sports. They did a lot of things different. They were almost 3 years apart, and so Grant was more the big brother taking care of his little sister. So those kind of things, we did have to deal with a lot of some of those things we might have if we'd had three boys and a girl or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, but they're still all their own person. They have their own
All right.
gifts. I love there's a famous marathon runner. He's retired now, but he's Ryan Hall, who's a believer. And he said, find what God put you on earth to do. He said, anyone can be good at something, but it really takes something special to be great at something. So find what God put you on earth for and be great at it. And
I
so,
love that.
and he
I mean,
did, he did that and did amazing. It's very inspiring.
that's good.
So I think the last pitfall I have on my list is, I guess I have two. One is having a really narrow perspective and just being surrounded by people in your same stage of life.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that kind of contributed to some of that pressure I shared at the beginning of the episode, like when it was like, oh, what kind of food do you give the baby, or what kind of school do you send your kid to? If every single person in your life is in the same stage of life, if everyone has a kindergartner who's starting to school, it's going to seem like where you go to kindergarten is the biggest deal in the world.
Right.
And so I think one of our temptations is to be surrounded by people who are all on the same stage. And that's really can be fun, but also can be very narrow. I think it was helpful to have other people. Like I had one wise mentor who said, hey, you're not making their whole life decision. You're just deciding kindergarten.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's good.
she said, with my kids, we evaluated every year and we could change things. And I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't realize you could do that.
Like this is set in stone now.
Exactly. So I thought we were signing away, for life. And it was like, no, if I hadn't had that wise mentor in my life, who knows where we would be now.
It's so good. And I think that I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think always having somebody that's in kind of the next stage of where you are, if your kids are little, get somebody that's teenagers or teenagers, somebody that's kids have recently left, just to kind of help you get some perspective and pick good ones, pick ones that you look at their kids, you think they did a good job. They really did a good job with this. And most people like that are going to go, well, I don't have anything to give you, but they do. They sell themselves short sometimes. And if they've been through it and their kids are doing pretty well, then they have a lot to share.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've heard that said, and I'm like, no, you're helping me. I don't see how you don't see it, but it's great. Yes, that's a good one. And the final one we kind of touched on, you talked about with not trusting God, but mine was just trying to control your kids and their outcome. I think I wasn't thinking about it as much as trusting God, but just thinking my plan was the best plan. I'm thinking, I know you, I know how your mind works, and I know what you should be doing, but no, really God does. And so letting go of my sort of dreams for what I think they would be good at and letting them make their own choices.
Yeah.
Is the pitfall I've had to work on.
Yeah. And I think it is hard sometimes, and then if they find something good, how do we encourage them that without making them think, okay, I've got to do this the rest of my life to make mom or dad happy. I mean, there's a delicate balance there. Yeah. I think communicating with your kids is good. If you want to try baseball, we're behind you. We'll help you get on a good team, and we'll be there for practices, and we'll be at all your games and stuff. And then again, they can evaluate it after that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
or if
good.
It's music, or if it's learning the piano lessons, or if it's dance, or, all those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. The open line of communication.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Kim, this has been a helpful conversation. Do you have any final piece of advice for our listeners today?
Well, I think together we brought up some really good things, and they're things that I think we probably have all dealt with, that Nancy dealt with, you and Brian have probably dealt with your 4 kids and our 2 kids and 5 grandkids. And so I just hope that you'll take time to see, how are you in this stage of parenting as a couple? Where are you in this stage? Where are your kids? What are your goals right now for yourself, your marriage, and your kids? And how do you really just lean into God and let him be your guide through this? And if you do that, you're going to be okay. I mean, you're not going to be perfect, and you'll make a mistake or two, but you're going to be okay.
Yeah, that's good. That's encouraging.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good place to end for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode about avoiding common parenting pitfalls. If you have enjoyed the episode, go ahead and leave us a rating and review wherever you listen, because it helps us to know what you're thinking about the podcast. It also helps other couples find the podcast. And that's what we want to do. We want to bring some hope and encouragement to couples everywhere about how they can build an awesome marriage. So have a great day and do something awesome for your marriage today.